Hello everyone, it's Ren speaking. Hope you're doing well everybody, and welcome to my room of course. Before I started this video, I just want to remind you that I have written a book. If you're into Kafka, Dostoevsky, the likes of Hermann Hesse, Albert Camus, and all these great existential psychologists, support a fellow INFJ if you consider it. Links down below, Amazon links down below, thank you. So I'm trying this new configuration where we'll see how it works, because it already got very dark today here, because it's very foggy basically. Obviously, sunset is kind of about to begin, but the fog, it's a very cloudy day and the fog is pervasive. So, I'm trying to light my face a little bit more. Hopefully you can let me know if that works or if it's a bit annoying. Okay. So I wanted to take a little moment to discuss a topic that just occurred to me recently. I ask myself some questions, a lot of questions all the time, and one particular question I ask myself is, what about this idea that ANA users are people with a plan? Because this is something that we hear a lot. We hear that NI comes with a vision, hence the famous phrase, the NI vision. And I have myself made plentiful use of that phrase in the past, and I continue to do that because I do think that the NI vision is a thing, and it's an interesting topic to debate, and I have talked about it in many videos and made videos about it. But I think that there's a difference between being someone with a vision. Well, first of all, there's a difference between the NI vision and what people usually understand by having a vision. And it's linked to what I want to talk about more specifically today, which is the idea of having a plan, being a man with a plan, being a woman with a plan. And that's, it's all too often confused and conflated with the NI vision. So it is often assumed that, mostly in the case of INTJs, and I suspect this is heavily influenced by fiction, but that if you're an NIDOM, INTJ, or INFJ, more often INTJ in people's minds, you're going to have like a really long-term plan, presumably with your life. And that's often how we think that we can distinguish between NFJ types, INFJ types, or NTJ types, and then T types, for example, NT types, NTP types, P types, NTP types, and FP types. So in the previous video, I already talked about how it's perfectly possible for any users and other types to have visions in the broad sense of the word. But I would say that it's even more contentious when it comes to the idea of having a plan, because even though in some sense it is true that INTJs and INFJs relate to having a kind of plan, a long-term plan, this is a lot of the time something that you don't actually notice if you're someone external to these people. You might know these people, you might not know that they're INFJ or INTJ. But it might not strike you that they have a particular plan at all. In fact, sometimes it might strike you that they have no plans, that they should have more plans. People will, if you're an NIDOM, oftentimes people will tell you should have a plan. So you see that there is a discrepancy, like a disconnect between what people say, that INTJs and INFJs, especially in this case, are people with a vision, people with a plan, and yet if you ask the average INTJ or the average INFJ, they will tell you that people in the real world, when they talk to them, they're not always like talking to them and being like, oh yeah, you have this long-term plan, it's great, It's not something that is actually visible to people. We think it is visible to people, and that it is visible to us or to other types, to people of other types, because what is shown in fiction and what is shown in anime is again the archetypal version of these types, where Well, there's a reason why they're discussed in fiction. You know, the reason why they're discussed in fiction, uh, and that they feature in those movies and those animes, is that they're like people with a very special kind of talent, or people with a very special kind of destiny, you know? And of course, these people are going to be exceptional in some respects, you know? So Walter White in Breaking Bad, yeah, he has a plan, and he's an INTJ, and he's very careful, meticulous, and it pans out extremely well. But like, that's a fictional character having an exceptional story, and that's why he is in that show, you know. And you could apply that to, you know, many different characters from many different shows. It's like, and when it comes to public personalities like Elon Musk, you could say, okay, like he's an INTJ, maybe, you know. Let's say that a lot of people think he is, and yeah, he clearly has a long-term vision, long-term plan. Yeah, but like, there's a reason why Elon Musk is so visible, is because he has achieved all these things. Okay, and by the way, a lot of people achieve these things that are not anti-dominant. But like 99.9% of INTJs and INFJs do not make it to the into the media, and they're not represented to that extent in anime, and they won't really relate to those characters as much as we might think, as other people might think. And that ties in with some, you know, my previous video where I discussed why it's hard sometimes for INFJs to relate to INFJs in fiction and public INFJs. Most of the time, the INFJs and the INTJs of the everyday, they have a plan, but it's not a plan that makes sense to people outside. It makes sense to their own vision, which is subjective. It's a subjective vision. It's introverted. The function is introverted, which by definition means that it's going to be hard for people outside, people that are in their families and their professional environments, to relate to it, to understand it. And to a lot of these people, what's going to come across is not understanding this idea of having a long-term vision, a long-term plan, because it is so difficult to understand for somebody outside of that subjective articulation of the vision. It's going to seem like they don't have a plan a lot of the time, or that they live outside of the world of everyday realities and what it means for people to have a plan. Because for the vast majority of people who are, for the most of the time, sensor types, who tend to be a bit more practical and linked to, you know, the pragmatics of life, like whatever, you know, arcane or sort of mysterious plan INFJs and INTJs very sincerely and very deeply think and feel they have, you know, it's not going to translate to people. And to people, it's going to seem like there is no plan, because the way in which a plan is articulated in people's minds, the way in which people understand the very word plan is a practical plan, a plan for your life. You know, a plan to do good studies, get a good job, progress in your career, you know, buy property, buy a house, invest, get higher, you know, and aim higher and higher. And the idea is that if you have a well laid out plan from the beginning, you will get there. But the fact of the matter is, these are matters that actually speak on average a bit more to sensors. And I think that for this reason, people who are most likely to have that kind of plan, like I just described, are probably sensor types, like ISTJ types, ESTP types, you know, SIDOM. SIDOM can be very useful. Of course, if you're a thinker, you know, you're more likely to be assertive, so you can get further, but it's going to be sensor type. It's actually not going to be, like, people who are perceived to have a long-term plan, ESTP types, it might be a little bit of a hard sell, but ESTJ types, ISTJ types. Among N types, I would say ENFJ types. And ENTJ types too, because they have a strong sensing function, and they're also, you know, for ENTJ types, you have T dominant. For ENFJs, you still have a dominant extroverted judging function, so that's good for organizing a plan with NI as well. But like, they're going to be more into this aspect of planning than and a lot of sensors also, than INTJs and INFJs. Whose sense of planning is very real and probably more pervasive from their perspective than it is for other types, but it's not going to translate 99.9% of the time. So, although this is what they feel, this is not what people observe in them. The people, you know, not people online who know them to be INTJs or INFJs and who've read all about them, but the people in their own lives. And I just wanted to bring this little perspective, this little correction for people who who would be interested in that. All right, see you soon, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.